Chicago to Florida to do nothing, but God had other plans. So I had been, oh, here comes another friend, let her in. Hey, welcome, you guys. Welcome. Come on in, get a drink, relax. We're just getting started. But I had my life, just so you guys know, in my 20s, I worked in advertising in Chicago. I was at ABC, NBC television. It was out there. Nobody was hiding anything. There was not really any secrets. This wasn't my wife, and the porn I watched last night was good, and what do you think about this? It was just advertising in the 90s and debaucherous, and it was what it was, but you knew what it was. And then I went the next decade of my 30s. I was in leadership at a mega church in Chicago, Willow Creek Community Church. So I was director of training and equipping for small groups, and then I was an area pastor. And there, it wasn't as out in the open about what was happening. There was lots of things happening, but you weren't really talking about it unless you got a really good small group going where you let people feel safe enough to get there. And you just couldn't fly things up the flagpole. So I saw there's some brokenness in this system, but I love the church. And then after that, I moved to Florida after being exhausted because I was in one of the wealthiest suburbs of Chicago. And all of the people that I worked with that were under our pastoral care, they had so many problems. The only difference is they looked really, really good. And it was packaged well. I used to call it my well-dressed Africa. Because everybody's broken, but some people just look better in their brokenness, right? And so then I moved to Florida exhausted to do nothing, and then somehow, some way, long story, last decade I've been in anti-sex trafficking, and I kept saying, I don't know why I'm in this and what this is about, but I see now how the Lord has put that last 30 years together and even my childhood, because my passion and what you'll learn about in this book is we're all born for a purpose. And we all are born with serious purpose in us. And I always say there's babies up in heaven, and then along comes purpose. And if we're not, lost in the womb, right, we're born. But the minute that we're here, the battle's on. And most people don't even know they're in a battle. And by the time some people are 3, 4, 5, they say the stats tell us 3, 4, 5 years old is the average age of abuse. And that's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, whatever the lightning bolt of trauma is, 3, 4, 5 years old. And then they say that statistically the average age of disclosure, 53 years old. So from 3 to 53, so few are fortunate enough to either have families that know how to equip them to step into purpose, to not feel that they're not worth it because they've been hit so young, to help them understand, hey baby, you're sort of like a superhero, and there's going to be people coming after you, and you are going to learn how to fight, and you're going to do some Obi-Wan Kenobi training for you, and this is, things that come at you are actually things that are showing you what your power is, and then we're going to teach you how to get into your power. But we don't parent like that usually, and a lot of times people walk around with brokenness, and they don't understand. They never get rid of that thing inside of them that knows that they're made for more, but they don't quite know how to get there. I think that's chapter 3 of the book. It's time to get there. But for me, my passion, because when I ran the sex trafficking, I did safe housing for a decade. And we worked with over 5,000 girls. And we were one of the first with everything. I was like on the front side of all this stuff. And every girl had the same story. And it was textbook. And it goes with the stats. 1 out of 3 little girls, 1 out of 5 little boys, sexually abused, keeping a secret. Something happened that something, was started to be unspoken. And then they can't take it anymore. And then they run away and they run into the arms of somebody worse. And they think it's a rescuer, but it's a trafficker. And you know what? It was the exact same story when I was in North Shore, Chicago. 1 out of 3 little girls, 1 out of 5 little boys, they run away, but they ran into the arms of a successful man that was maybe domestic violence. And I would hear the stories of what was happening at the homes behind the doors. So we run because we're trying to get to something better, but we always, often you'll see people set up for a counterfeit. And so even when I did trafficking for the last decade with all these girls, same story, sold for sex 15 to 40 times a day. I mean, unbelievable, these precious little girls. And they were no different than you or me, no different than my daughter or your daughters. They literally just didn't have anyone show them the right way out. And so my first book, Groomed, I sort of wrote out of that and my own brokenness. I was more of the North Shore housewife, and I had done my thing marrying into that. And so that's why my second husband, Mr. Good, who is a whole different Walk in the Park is a chapter on the good life. I think it's chapter 11. And that even gets into like how long it took me to settle into that name. Because, becoming Mrs. Good, that's a big deal. Was I good? I don't really feel that good. I mean, I've got a little messed up. But this is the first book that I put just Elizabeth Good on the cover. So, yay, Bradley, you did it! But the passion that came up in me is that even as I was working with these girls and I would sit with them and they would tell their stories, and I would hear my story and their stories, and then donors would have lunch with me and they'd tell me their stories, and their stories were the same as the girls' stories in the house. And they just wanted to give me a check to tell somebody because they'd never told anybody their secrets before. And this book is just all about everybody has secrets. And you know what? The secrets are actually the secret sauce. And if we could get really comfortable getting past our secrets and speaking about the things that we think, oh my gosh, I could never say that. And if I ever shared that, no one would ever look at me the same again. And I was working with, because what Lisa said is true, this is rolling out, it's a companion piece for a tool that we have called Real Talk. And Real Talk has curriculum, basically. We call it like a catalytic Holy Spirit can opener. It's like a tool that it gets in there quickly, but it's kindergarten through 12th grade. It goes through for school-age kids, and then there's an adult journey through small group. And it just helps to unlock things, and it helps to unleash what we're actually created for and want to do. And it does it in a way that people don't even realize it's happening, because you come into a group setting and we do it on Zoom, and it's usually very anonymous. So you're able to get really strong leaders that come together and they don't know each other because they're from places all around the country. And then all of a sudden you ask the first question and you sort of go for it. You ask some things that people don't normally talk about, and we model it. We go first. We share at a level that no one's ever shared before, and they're like, oh my gosh, and then they say it. And then the next person's like, I can't believe they said that. That's me. And no one. Then before you realize that almost everybody's the same. And I was with priests in New York last Friday, a week ago. And we were talking about it. And one of the priests who gave last rites to Mother Teresa endorsed this book. And he said, we're missing this. There's a chapter called The Lost Art of Confession. And it talks about, in the secular world, I'm a therapist, right? So we talk about generational patterns, psychology-wise, that if you don't deal with something, it's going to repeat generationally. And in the church, we talk about sins of the father to the third and the fourth generation. And, then we look at our kids and wonder, why are they doing that? But we never talked about what we have hidden. And every time I have a girlfriend that will tell me, oh my gosh, my daughter, this happened. I'm like, did you ever tell her your story? She's like, no, I couldn't. I was too embarrassed. And there's so much shame, and shame is so ridiculous. It's so stupid. Like, even when I was talking to priests, I'm like, how is it for you guys? They're like, oh my gosh, people come in, they're like, Father, you're never going to believe what I'm going to tell you. And it's always the same thing. I mean, nobody's sins are that special. They're all pretty basic. It's sort of level at the foot of the cross. Everybody has done something. And my passion for this book, too, is we are in a world today where we're not talking about so much. And with the internet, it's very different than we were growing up. And even when my older kids who are 25 and 22, my 19 sort of got in it a bit. But it's a tricky place to navigate, because they're getting inundated. They are getting inundated with like hardcore porn, and the way that it's coming at them, they are showing statistically that neural pathways are changing and kids are getting addicted by 8 or 9 years old. And it's not like, oh, so what, they're just watching porn. It's like, no, it's abusive, it's twisted. It's a whole narrative that is not who we were designed to be. So kids today aren't understanding intimacy and love. And that's why for me, the K through 12 part of this is so important, because we want our grandchildren to have a pathway out. When we launched it with some 7th graders, they're like, I wish I had this in 4th grade, because everything you're teaching me is so textbook. And I would have known then when they said they had my brother's name and my family, my parents' name, and if I didn't send them naked pictures in 4th grade, they were going to kill my family. And she goes, I sent them. And if I would have heard this back then, I would have known not to do it. So the book is actually, it's just a pathway for parents, for us to speak and to talk, and it tells you how to tell your story. And that's what I love about it. Like, so often we don't tell our stories to our parents, or we don't want to talk to our parents. We think they're going to have a problem. But if we approach things in a special way, it like unlocks. I always say, I have a key for that. I have a key for that. And it helps you understand how to navigate your upline, which is your parents, and your downline, your kids, so that you break it off. Because each one of you, like every person here is so vital. Like everything in you is so important. And if something came against you, that shut down something that you know is true, that's all the enemy wants. And so this is just a tool. It's a toolkit for you. So I hope that you guys like it. I'm going to read a little bit, and then I'll let you have fun and eat and drink. And I'll sign books, and I hope you buy them. They're great Christmas presents for your friends. Great Christmas presents. So people always hear me say, like I always say, oh, I have a key for that. Like, it used to drive me nuts when I hung around people that didn't believe in God. They would tell me their stuff, and I'm like, dude, I got a key for that. And I would like say something about, how you could pray this or something. And they're like, I don't believe in God. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't have a key for that. But because we were made and we were created, and it's very important who you are, and you can navigate it because God gives us tools, weapons, right, Val? Yes. Weapons. Val and I are going to do some very important things together. Stay tuned. Very important. But there's a story. So in the chapter that's called Made for More, but who has time to get there? It talks about a baby elephant. And so when baby elephants are born and brought into captivity, they have a very little chain put around their leg. And it's just a little silver chain and a little thing. And it holds them. And as they get older, they don't ever believe that it's not strong enough. And it's not. It's definitely not strong enough. But they don't try it. They just stay. They don't believe that they could go any further or get free. And many of us live like that, and we don't understand the endless power that we have within us. So the book says, sound familiar? And for me, realizing I was being held by these remnants of rope from throughout my past, the light started to come on that maybe I had the strength to get unstuck. Maybe I had the opportunity to move forward. Maybe I had the God-given ability, makes me cry, I think of my husband, to break free. Only God could make the impossible possible. But my hands were open, so I started to pull at the ropes and unravel the strings. And that's when strongholds began to tear away like those threads. If someone is willing to say yes, just to the very next step, whatever it is for you, from where you're standing or sitting right now, each step accomplishes exponentially more. Speaking the unspoken, doing the work to excavate, rewriting long-lived lies and trading them for light, laying down stepping stones so others can follow in your footsteps. Patterns begin to form that become easier to recognize and therefore easier to follow when you come to the next hill. You start to trade weight for worth, odds for opportunity, problems for power, conflict for confidence. And don't get me wrong, it's not always easy. With all this talk about speaking up, being transformational, sometimes it's brutal, but it's worth the battle. I've never heard a single person that stepped into it that didn't say it wasn't. But here's the part that you can especially take to the bank. Staying in the past is harder than getting past it. So I invite you guys today. I think Bayside Church will be rolling out groups called Real Talk and making it up, the opportunity for people to get involved. But we have so many resources. So when you read the book, the nice thing about it is you begin a journey. And at the end of your journey, it says, it's just the beginning. Because there's a QR code, and it unlocks this whole world for you called Real Talk Collective. And we're going to be launching groups in January. So if you're like, I need this, and I'm tired of putzing around, I'm so sick of myself. I'm sick of myself saying I don't know how to get better, and I'm just sick of it. This is for you. And so there's a QR code. You can scan that. You can sign up. There's a noon group and an evening group. I never lead these by personally, but I'm doing it for the new year, just to do it personally for people, because our focus is really organizational and churches and all that. But I'm doing a couple of them, so we invite you guys to jump in. Yeah, take a next step, whatever it is. And I just want to say thank you. I'm still in the anti-trafficking world. What I've switched to, so everybody knows, is the Foundation United. Back in 2010, when we started Selah, we had a vision that one day there'd be an umbrella to the movement, and there'd be a foundation. And that's what I run now, the Global Foundation. And it's basically built on getting ahead of it, because every girl, same story. I have Brooke here. She was a state's attorney, one of the prosecutors. Horrible. Same story. And so what we focus on in Foundation United is every system that missed it, because it's just intolerable for these systems not to see it.